Hello everyone. Good morning. I'm Ankit and you're watching the Indian Express analysis on StudyIQ IAS English channel. Now today is 7th of February and we'll be dealing with 6 important articles that have appeared in the newspaper. We'll start with our today's discussion with Demchok, which is a location located on the India and Chinese border, and this was the very point where India achieved the disengagement of its troops with the Chinese army. Now, this also is a subject of today's article because government is trying to, or it is planning to bring such kind of sites which is located on Indo-Pakistan border, located on Indo-Chinese border, and make a tourist spot out of it. Now, this will be done through the initiative called as Battlefield Tourism Initiative, where these sites will be developed, the necessary infrastructure will be created, the stories that will be enumerated on the various kind of museums that will be set up, as it will highlight the important achievement of Indian Armed Forces and how they were able to tackle any aggression made from the foreign countries like Pakistan and China. Now, such kind of an initiative, they are very important as far as unity of any country is concerned, because what is the major factor that unites the people belonging to different communities, different languages, different regions? It is any external threat that is there on your country. So that is the intention of the government, so as to unify the people into highlighting the positioning that India is one and it will always remain as one. Now, such kind of an initiative is important from places in news, as we have seen many map-based questions on important sites that are in news. So, such kind of a site will be discussing it in our today's discussion. The second, the second article is on draft UGC regulation. Now, this regulation was brought by the government last month. However, this has created a sense of tension between many states, primarily which are opposition party ruled, and between the government. And many states, including the southern states, they are highlighting or they are requesting the union government to withdraw such kind of draft UGC regulation. Now, in our today's discussion, we'll understand what kind of regulations are there that has put the southern states or very opposition ruled states into discomfort. And this is important from GS paper 2 perspective, because in this syllabus, the education or the social sector related to education sector is covered. Understood? Then we'll be dealing with India's regional navigation satellite constellation known as NavIC, and there are certain problems that the newer satellite which was sent on board the 100th mission of ISRO, it has faced, and that has put the intention of government into various discomfort, so that the navigation or regional navigation based constellation will not work as it was originally envisaged by both the government as well as ISRO. So we'll try to understand various features of NavIC and what are the various problems that the NavIC has faced since the time it was introduced in the space sector back in 2016. This is important from GS paper 3 perspective, because awareness related to space is mentioned there, and also achievement of India in the fields of science and technology. And you understand developing such a regional satellite navigation system is a big achievement for any space related organization. So therefore we'll be dealing with this article. Then we'll follow up with the article that appeared highlighting that the North Pole temperature has risen more than 20 degrees since the time of global warming, and it has created a lot of problem when it comes to global climate. So we'll understand how North Pole acted as a refrigerator of the world, and how now the rise in temperature in North Pole has created a threat on the global climate. This is also important from GS paper 3. However, it is relevant from environment syllabus, whereas this one was relevant from science and tech, and this one was related to education. Understood? Then we'll follow up with Trump's plan to develop Gaza, as this has met with serious hurdles or serious opposition from many countries including Jordan and Egypt. What is the plan of President Trump to develop Gaza? Why is actually Egypt and Jordan not comfortable with it, and what are the important places that are there near Gaza? We'll look into it completely so as to prepare ourselves not just from mains perspective but also from prelims perspective. And this is a part of IR syllabus remotely, so we'll be dealing with this, how it affects the region's overall geopolitical climate. The last article of today's will be India's changing stance on climate change and how India should approach the negotiations in climate forum. This highlights the recent change in India's stance, why actually the developed countries are not supporting developing countries like India, and rather what should India do in that climate or in that scenario. That will be the subject of our today's discussion. Also, this will be important from GS paper 3 perspective, as it is a part of environment syllabus. So this is how we'll cover our today's article. And the notes of this session, as usual, will be available on my Telegram channel called ATS Live. So you can search the words ATS Live on the top right corner of your mobile app. And if you're still not able to find the channel, you always and can always scan the QR code. Now, I uploaded an important reel on Instagram yesterday on the Makhana board that was announced by the Government of India in its union budget. So if you want to watch that reel, please go to my Insta handle called as ANKTSNGH. There is no I in both Ankit and Singh. So please make sure to do that. And also you can scan the QR code that I've given here. Now, let us try to solve the yesterday's question, as there were some comments on the Telegram channel. Now, if you want to discuss any question in future, the answer of that question, I'll request you to please comment that in the YouTube video itself, as it puts every person who is watching in that video and they will be able to answer it perfectly. Also, a genuine request from my side, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button, as you liking the video will encourage us to do better every day. And also, please appreciate our hard work in the comment section after the session ends. Understood? Now, good morning, Bulbul. Good morning, Baga Spinks. Good morning, Augustine. Good morning, Bulbul again. Good morning. Now let us deal with the practice question. Consider the following statements regarding Kuno National Park. The park, it is located in Vindhyan Range. This is correct, and it is characterized by tropical moist deciduous forest ecosystem. Is it characterized by tropical moist deciduous forest system? No. It is characterized by tropical grassland. Now this question could have been solved by a very common sense. I'll tell you how. See, the government, it introduced cheetah in this very particular national park. So what does cheetah require? It requires large stretches of land which is actually not having so much trees so that it can run faster in that land. But what if there is a moist deciduous or even a tropical evergreen forest? So that will have a presence of large amount of trees, and it will not provide the adequate space for tigers to run in that land. So naturally, the natural habitats of cheetahs and bigger animals are not moist deciduous or tropical forests, but rather grasslands, which is present in Africa. Now also it is available in Kuno National Park. So that is why it is characterized by grassland and not moist deciduous forest ecosystem. Therefore, first statement is incorrect. It was selected for cheetah introduction project because of its similarity to the African savanna in terms of vegetation and prey base. Yes, it is right. African savanna is a type of, again, grassland. Understood? So that is how you will approach your today's discussion. Second statement is right, first is incorrect. You have to identify correct statement. Therefore, option B here is the right answer. Yes, Bhaga Springs, you're right. Option B here. Now, I always wonder, what does Bhaga means? Is it the word revolutionary or is it something else? Do let me know in the comment section. Now, moving to the practice question that we will take up today. For the mains perspective, India has recently emphasized adaptation and economic growth over aggressive emission reduction in its climate policy. This was done in the economic survey that was published for the year 2024 and 25, the discussions of which we have had on our channel. Please do watch that kind of a video, as this kind of a video are available on the StudyIQ IS English channel. The same is provided in the playlist here. As you can see, there is a separate playlist that has all the budget and economic survey related videos. If you haven't already, please go and watch these videos, as it will help you immensely in both prelims and mains examination. Also, if you have problem in understanding the static subjects, please go to our website and log in, and also enlist for a course using the code ATS Live. By using the code ATS Live, you will be able to get maximum discounts on your courses that are available on the StudyIQ website. Now, the courses that are available on the StudyIQ website, it provides you complete coverage of the syllabus, in addition to taking current affairs classes, providing you tests, support for mentorship, and also if you qualify prelims, you will be brought to Delhi on the complete expense of StudyIQ. You will be put here for 3 months. Your expenses, including food, lodging, studies, everything will be taken care of, and you can always register for such courses, as it will remember, or it will ensure that you are selected in the final list. Understood? Now moving back to our today's discussion, this was done on economic survey. We have to analyze the factors that are driving this India shift in policy and also discuss its potential impact on India's climate commitments and global climate negotiations. So how to approach this answer? Please stay tuned to our session. We'll be discussing this before the session ends. Now let us start with the first article. This article actually appeared in the Indian Express newspaper on page 9, and it states that the Demchok, it is open to visitors under the Battlefield Tourism Initiative. Now, in the recent public memory, sites such as Galwan, Doklam and 75 other sites, these are known as forward sites. These are disputed sites, and the government of India, it is positioning its army so that the other country cannot commit aggression on us. Now, this is also a site which has witnessed clashes in previous history. Now, if you want to remember and cherish the achievements of our armed forces in protecting the lands of India, that sites are an ideal example, and the government, it is looking to make these sites as a tourist sites and invite tourists to visit such sites. And this will be done under the Battlefield Tourism Initiative, which has been done with the collaboration of Indian Army as well as Ministry of Tourism. And the Bharat Ran Bhumi Darshan scheme is the official name of this scheme, and it will have a dedicated website also, which will provide visitors the necessary information that they can get in order to reach there. And it will have information on 77 sites in total, also their stories and how to get there. So this is the context of our today's discussion. Now, the background actually, that is most of these sites, they are located alongside India's border on China as well as Pakistan. And these places, they have a history of wars along with the time that India got independence. For example, in 1962, India went on to a war with China. And also there was this armed clash between India and China in 1967. Whereas along the western borders, that has been disturbed for quite some time. India went to war with Pakistan in 1965, in 1971, and also a regional conflict or a regional war happened in the area of Kargil in 1999. Now, all of these sites, one of the most important of which is Battle of Longewala. I don't know if you have seen the Hindi movie called Border. That Border movie highlights the story of Battle of Longewala, which happened during the time of 1970 war. Now, these kind of sites that will be developed by the government so as to encourage tourists to arrive at these sites. Understood. Now let us try to understand the various aspects of the scheme. Now, this Bharat Ran Bhumi Darshan, the official name of the scheme, it is a one-stop solution, as every information or clearances that will be necessary for tourists to go there, it will be provided by the Ministry of Tourism by a site that it will be developing. Now, Defense Minister Mr. Rajnath Singh has recently highlighted that many states, including Ladakh, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, it is witnessing uptick in tourism activity, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. So, it is natural that the government would want to attract these many tourists who are already visiting the nearby areas into these forward sites as well, so as to tell them that these are the hard conditions in which our defense personnel they serve, and they also ensure 24/7 that our borders are protected. Understood? So this is the original intention of this site, and doing so, not just it will increase tourism activity in the area, it will create development in the area, but it will also enlist a sense of belongingness and a sense of togetherness that is very much necessary in a diverse country like India. So this is what the government wants to do. Also, the plan of this Bharat Ran Bhumi Darshan, it entails transforming these kind of historical battlefields and making them into an accessible tourist destination. Now, these are primarily battlefields which are meant for the armies to patrol over these areas. So, naturally, the tourism kind of an infrastructure like washrooms, ticketing counters and museums, these were probably not be present in that area. So the government first of all will create that necessary infrastructure so that the tourists are comfortable whenever they are reaching there. And also these locations, they were previously restricted to general public due to their strategic significance and also due to the challenging terrain. But in recent times, the government is developing these border areas, constructing roads, providing them with forward airports so that the tourists can come easily, and this will make these hitherto challenging terrain much more accessible to tourists. Now, some of these locations like Longewala, they already have war memorials and museums. Now, all these existing museums, they will be integrated into this Bharat Ran Bhumi scheme. So, if the question comes that this will create extra infrastructure, the answer is no. The original existing infrastructure will be integrated, whereas some necessary infrastructure can also be constructed by the Ministry of Defence. Now, good morning, Tony. So this is what the government want. Now let us try to understand the significance of this scheme. First significance is that the army, in addition to government, it is looking to develop these India's border areas, because there are many people who are already living there. And as these border areas, these are located in remote locations and have challenging terrain, the necessary infrastructure for economic development of this area is not present. So the government, by virtue of Bharat Ranbhumi Darshan scheme, it will want to create infrastructure, communication facility, and also encourage tourism and education, so that not just tourism or tourists arrive in that area, but it also leads to economic development of the local people. As these people, they do not have traditional employment opportunities, like there are no factories there, or the amount of schools and healthcare facilities are below par. So by putting them or enriching them with the tourism concept, that will allow them to earn money by providing services to the tourists, and it will also lead to their socio and economic development. Also, this move is aimed at promoting connectivity, tourism and socio-economic development in the border region, as I've already told you. And with this, the army is collaborating with local civil authorities so as to make not just the tourism infrastructure, but also allow the Indian Army to promote tourism while maintaining its highest operational readiness or preparedness, so that in any case, any future aggression happens by China or Pakistan, it could be dealt with efficiently and effectively. Understood this initiative? Now, there are some important areas where these kind of initiatives will be taken place. First area that we understood was the Doklam region. Now, primarily, Doklam is a region located in the country of Bhutan. Understood? Now, Indian Army or India has an agreement with Bhutan that any aggression, if it happens on Bhutanese territory, which has or which can negatively impact India's territorial security, India will intervene in the Bhutanese territory also. So Chinese, they were constructing infrastructure in this area. So that is why Indian Army moved inside Bhutan territory and denied the Chinese army to construct any necessary infrastructure, because it will put Indian territory located near the northeast region into danger. So let us try to zoom out this map a little bit so as to understand the context better. Now you understand the Indian mainland here is connected with northeastern part of the country here with a narrow corridor located this part, and this is known as Siliguri corridor. Now this is very narrow piece of land, and this connects mainland India with the northeastern part of the country, and this is located very near to the Chinese and Bhutanese border here, and this is the area of Doklam. So if China were to gain a stronghold in this area, it will put this area, that is Siliguri corridor, into danger, and this is what India does not want. So that is why it intervened in this area and stopped Chinese construction from happening, or to allow Chinese to dominate this area. And the intention was to promote India's security or India's hold over this Siliguri corridor, which is a narrow piece of land between Indian mainland and northeastern part of the country. Understood? So this is how you study the map, by understanding the context of why this development happened, particularly in this area. Now theoretically, Doklam, it is located in Bhutan and it is claimed by both Bhutan and China, whereas India is a third party to it. Understood? Now also let us try to understand the map of Ladakh region, which has been in news for quite some years now, because a clash or a violent clash happened between Indian army and Chinese army in the location of Galwan, which is located here. Now other important locations are Depsang, located north of Galwan, Gogra Hot Springs, located south of Galwan, and located south of Hot Springs is the popular Pangong So Lake. Now, if you've watched 3 Idiots, you'll see Amir Khan in that Pangong So Lake. Understood? Now, south of Pangong is another region called Demchok, which was in our today's news. Understood? So, this is how the important locations are located in India. Northernmost is located Depsang, followed by Galwan in the south, followed by Gogra Hot Springs in the south. South of that is Pangong So Lake, and the southernmost point is the Demchok region. Understood? Now let us try to solve this question with the map. Now Demchok, it is situated in which part of the region? Now please comment the correct answer in the comment section. I will not be telling you this answer, as I have just discussed the map. Please, I want to see how many of you answer it correctly and how many of you can answer it in a fastest manner. Please do comment. Now let us move to the second article of the day. This article actually appeared in 2 pages of the Indian Express newspaper. I have taken the reference here in the op-ed page that appeared on the page 11 of Indian Express newspaper. And it states that 6 opposition rule states they have demanded the rollback of UGC draft guidelines. And there is this article located or written by a spokesperson of an opposition rule party. So we'll be borrowing this article to understand what is the reason why many states have been opposing this draft UGC guidelines. Now, the context of this article is that the government, it actually brought a draft UGC minimum qualification for appointment and promotion of teachers and academic staff in universities, etc. regulation, and which gives chancellor of any university, which in most cases are the governor of a particular state, a bigger role in appointment of the vice chancellors of state universities. So theoretically, the chancellors of state university in most cases are the governor, whereas the operational head of the vice university or the nominal head of the any university is the vice chancellor. Understood? So the appointment of vice chancellor is a subject of these draft guidelines, and this is why the controversy over this issue has happened. Now let us try to understand first of all what is the university's Grand Commission. Now it is a different setup or a different organization which was set up by the Department of Higher Education as a statutory body. And why am I saying it as a statutory body? Because it was enacted as per a law or a statute which was enacted by the Parliament. So therefore it was formed as per the UGC Act 1956, which makes it a statutory body. Now the function of this body is to coordinate, determine and maintain the standards of university, and by doing so it provides finances to India's university, which are also known as grants. Now grants are those finances which are not loans, that is the universities are not liable to pay them back. It is just a transfer of money from UGC to the Indian universities. So this is a body which is known for making financial contributions to institutions and universities, and that is why such an important body it is. Now, let us try to understand what are the key changes and the provisions that have been envisaged in the draft regulations. First of all is the Vice Chancellor appointment process. Now, this appointment process will be done by a 3-member search cum selection committee, which will appoint Vice Chancellor, and this committee will first of all be constituted by the Chancellor of University, who in most cases we have understood is the Governor of the state. Now, this committee, it will comprise of a chairperson who will be a nominee of Chancellor, and the members, it includes a nominee of UGC chairman and also a representative of university's apex body, that is a composition of syndicate, senate, executive council, etc. So theoretically this chairperson as well as the first member who will be the nominee of UGC chairman, these will be the nominee of the union government. Understood? Whereas only one, that is the representative of university's apex council, will be the nominee of state government. So theoretically you can say 2 members are represented or representing union's interest, whereas only 1 member will represent the state interest, and this is where the controversy is going to happen. That states are saying that we regulate the universities, so why is actually the union government dominating the search and selection committee for the VCs? Understood? So this is the most touchy topic in this draft regulation guidelines. Also, the appointment criteria actually is that the vice chancellor's candidates who will be appearing for this post, they must possess high academic qualification and must demonstrate leadership capabilities. Understood? Now, this also enlists the eligibility criteria of what kind of persons are now eligible to be appointed as VCs or vice chancellors. For example, they should be professors with at least 10 years of experiences in higher education institutions. They must be individuals who are at senior level in industry, public administration, or even government owned PSUs, and they should have a proven track record of an already significant scholarly contributions. Now, this regulation, you understand, has expanded a pool of candidate. Earlier, these kind of posts were only available to persons who are enlisted as professors in the university. Now, even the industry experts can be appointed. That is why it is allowing a closer collaboration between the universities on one hand and with the industry on another. Understood? Now, this is also subject of discussion that the many opposition rule states are saying that you are appointing persons who do not have an educational experience, rather they have a corporate experience. So how they will be able to regulate or manage a university is a question that the opposition is asking. Now, let us understand many other changes and provisions. First of all, it makes faculty appointments much more flexible, that a candidate who is qualifying NET or SET, that are recruitment tests for professors and teachers, and they can teach a subject even other than the subjects that they have graduated or post-graduated in, provided that they are undertaking their PhD specialization in the subject. So, for example, a person who has an engineering degree or a master's in economics can actually teach sociology because they have a or they are pursuing their PhD specialization in sociology. Understood? This is just an example. Now, also it eliminates many academic performance indicators that were used to or make eligible any person who must be appointed as a VC or a professor. For example, it was brought in 2018 regulation that quantitative metrics such as how many journals a person has composed or published, it was considered as a criteria of determining whether that person is qualified or eligible or not. However, this has now been replaced with the holistic evaluations of notable contributions which are spread across 9 categories. So, in a way, you can understand it liberalizes the appointment process, it makes more people eligible, and it also does away with the need of considering just journal publication in assessing the qualification of the candidate. Also, we see that the major problems that the universities are facing, that the positions of professors that are lying vacant, they are vacant for a long time because they are unable to find the suitable candidates. So, for that, in order to just fill the gaps for a temporary basis, the contract teacher appointments, there will no be longer be the cap of 10% that was earlier there, and it prevented many other persons to be hired as a contract teacher. So, this cap has been removed by the new regulation. So, these are the key changes that are envisaged by the draft regulations, and the most important change, or the one that has created the most controversy, is the dominance of union government in the appointment process of VCs. Understood? Now, let us move to another article. This article appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express, and it states that the story of NavIC, which is India's regional satellite navigation system. Now, India Space Agency, it launched the new generation of satellites for the IRNSS, also known as NavIC, and this second generation satellite NVS-2 was sent on the 100th mission of the ISRO's, which was launched over the GSLV, or the geostationary launch vehicle. Now, this is a navigational satellite, and it actually malfunctioned due to a non-firing of its engine in space. Now, this malfunction or this malfunctioning of the satellite of the IRNSS or the NavIC is actually latest in the series of setbacks that the ISRO has suffered in making this constellation a working constellation. As previously, many of the satellites, they face problem because of the working of an atomic clock in it, which is an essential component in any navigational satellite. Now, let us understand the background of this issue. Now, this IRNSS or the NavIC system, which was originally conceived following the 1919 India's experience during the time of Kargil war, because you understand at the time of war, many military platforms like a artillery gun or the missiles and bombs that are dropped from the planes, they require GPS coordinates to be able to navigate to the target precisely. Now, this GPS back then was provided just by US. Now, US, understanding that India was using its GPS technology to drop bombs on Pakistani locations in Kargil, the US denied India that kind of a military facility, and so it denied Pakistan also. Now, that put India into a question that when we are dependent on a foreign technology for our own defense related needs, and it can put India into a vulnerable position at the time of such conflicts. So, that is why India started to develop its own regional navigation system as an alternative, or not to depend on other countries for these kind of services. Now, this started off as an indigenous satellite program which constituted 7 satellite constellation, and it was made originally for both defense and civilian purposes. However, these kind of 7 satellites on the original, it faced certain problems related to the working of atomic clocks in it, as these atomic clocks that provide adequate time and the efficient time measures so that these satellites can track the movement of vehicles on ground. Understood? Now, because of these malfunctioning, even today, out of 11 satellites that have been sent as a replacement or total number of satellites, only 5 satellites are working currently. Understood? So, this is the problem that the government is facing. Also, India's regional navigation satellite system, it offers accurate position, velocity and timing services, and the coverage of this system currently is complete Indian mainland and up to 1500 kilometers beyond the borders of India. Now this provides two kind of services, which is a standard positioning services meant for general public use, as our mobile phones can be integrated with NavIC and they can provide navigation services using apps like Google Maps, etc. Also, restricted services are provided for military so that the military can use its defense platform and use the navigation services provided by NavIC to guide its payload and artillery guns to a particular location. Understood? So, these are two kinds of services that are offered by NavIC satellite. Also, the positioning accuracy is one of the most important feature of NavIC. It provides accuracy of less than 20 meters, which is much better than what the civilian purpose GPS provides and other services like Galileo provide. Also, in terms of timing accuracy, it is better than 40 nanosecond, that it just takes the data from Earth to go to satellite for a it takes 40 nanoseconds, which is much less than 1 second. So you understand the accuracy in terms of timing and position that it makes it a world class satellite. Also, the constellation of this satellite, first of all, I told you the 7 satellites were sent in the first iteration, and after many of these satellites faced malfunction because of the atomic clocks that are usually powered by atoms like cesium and rubidium, the Indian Space Research Organization sent replacement satellite, and now the second generation of satellites are also being sent, known as NVS 1 till 5. These are planned to augment the base layer. Now, original 7 constellation of satellites, these are positioned in 2 types of orbit. First is geostationary orbit. Here 3 satellites are positioned, whereas rest 4 are set up under the geosynchronous orbits. Understood? So these are the 2 kind of orbits that the satellites are positioned. 3 satellites into geostationary orbit, whereas the rest 4 in the geosynchronous orbit. Now, the next generation of satellite are meant to augment the base layer. They are not meant to replace the base layer. Understood? Now, this first was launched in May 2023 and second was now being launched in the 100th mission of ISRO, which was sent only last week. And these satellites will be equipped by higher frequency data, which will enable these satellites to cater the needs of smaller devices like mobile phones, smartwatches, etc. to use the satellite service. Understood? Now, let us try to understand the comparison between GPS, which is an American system, and the NavIC. Now, in terms of coverage, GPS has a global coverage. However, on the other hand, NavIC is just a regional navigation satellite which provides coverage for India's mainland and 1500 kilometers beyond Indian borders. So, in terms of coverage, NavIC stands behind GPS. Understood? Whereas NavIC, it provides better accuracy within India and it's independent of foreign system, thereby it ensures strategic autonomy to India. So in terms of accuracy, NavIC is actually better than GPS, whereas in terms of coverage, I told you GPS was better. Now, there is another strategic significance of such systems is that India will not be dependent on other countries to meet its military requirement for these kind of navigational services, and this is a huge achievement as far as India is concerned. Now, let us try to solve the question that I have curated on this topic. With reference to navigation with Indian constellation NavIC, consider the following statement. NavIC is a regional satellite navigation system developed by ISRO, similar to GPS and Galileo. Yes, it is correct. This is developed by ISRO and it is very similar to GPS and Galileo, albeit the coverage is smaller. Now, it consists of satellites in geosynchronous orbit only. This is incorrect. I told you 3 satellites are in geostationary orbit, whereas the 4 satellites are in geosynchronous orbit. Understood? So that is why there are 2 types of orbit in which these satellites operate. The third statement, NavIC provides positioning services only for military application and does not support civilian use. It is incorrect. As I told you, it provides support to military application and also to civilian. Therefore, third is incorrect. Second is also incorrect. First was correct. We had to identify correct statement. Therefore, option A here is the right answer. Oliver, sir, is there any monthly current affair session by you? Yes. Thank you for reminding me, as I was required to tell you today also that if you watch these video section, we uploaded the current affairs for monthly for December the month and there is a separate playlist created here. There's a monthly current affairs video. You can access these monthly current affairs video that we are putting up. So I hope this addresses your doubt. Oliver, Tony Raju, yes, you're right. D, south of Pangong is the right answer. Bulbul, south of what, Bulbul? Option D, Baga Springs, right? All of you are very attentive today. I'm very pleasantly surprised. Now let us move to the another article. This article actually appeared in the Indian Express newspaper in the explain section, which yesterday was on 17th page. Now this article states that why temperatures of North Pole has actually reached above 20 degrees of the global average, and we'll try to understand this. Give me a minute, I'll just have water. Yes, as I was saying, let us try to understand this article. The context of this article is recently studies have found out that the average temperatures of North Pole has risen more than 20 degrees above the global average, whereas the northern Svalbard region, which is a part of Norway, it has recorded 18-degree temperatures higher than the global average. So let us try to understand why is actually the warming much more prominent in the North Pole or in the polar region of our country, of our globe, sorry. Now, actually, why did the North Pole experience such a high rise in temperature? And there are two reasons. First is that the low pressure system has developed over Iceland, and whenever there is a low pressure system in the area, such as whenever during the monsoon season in India, it allows warm air from the nearby locations, that is in cases of North Pole, the lower latitudes, to enter the polar region. And when the warm air from tropical climate, it enters into a colder climate like North Pole region, it increases the local temperature. Understood? So this is the primary reason why there is a rise in temperature in the North Pole region. Now also at the warm sea surface's temperature in the North Pole, it increases the chance that the wind which are driven over these warmer waters, the temperature of these winds are also going to increase. That first of all, we understood that the low pressure system is creating inflow of warmer winds from the tropical region into polar region, and to intensify this kind of an event, the existing warm sea surface temperature, it increases the temperature of winds flowing over it further. So this is how the intensification of warmer climate is happening over the North Pole region. Now, why is actually Arctic facing warmer climate than global average? Now, you have to understand this in terms of facts. The global studies, they have indicated that the global temperature, they have risen by 1.3 degrees centigrade as compared to the baseline of 1850 to 1900. Whereas in contrast, a 2022 studies have showed that Arctic, it has warmed 4 times faster than the global mean temperature. So this is the fact that the temperatures in Arctic has increased by 4 times more than the global average of 1.3 degrees centigrade, and this is a cause of worry. Now there are many factors that have led to increase in temperatures much more prominent in the North Pole region. First is the phenomena called as albedo effect. Albedo effect is any effect that enables reflection of sunlight. So the lighter colored surfaces like a snow surface would naturally emit or reflect large amount of sunlight back into the atmosphere, whereas warmer surfaces or darker surfaces like ground, water, etc., they have the ability to less reflect the light, rather absorb these lights. So earlier, whenever there was this presence of sea over the North Pole, it used to reflect the sunlight back, therefore keeping the temperatures low. But as these sea ices are melting, we have seen that the grounds, they are not covered with ice anymore, and rather they are exposed, and so are the waters. And as the ice melts, darker land and ocean surfaces, they are exposed, and we understand their albedo effect are lower than as compared to ice. So therefore it absorbs and not reflects the sunlight, which leads to increase in temperature in the North Pole region, specifically when the ice is melting. So this is why it reinforces the feedback loop. As there are more melting of ice, more grounds will be exposed, and hence more sunlight will be absorbed, leading to higher temperatures, and this is why the temperatures are increasing. Another factor is the phenomena of convection, which means heat transfer via rising warm air. Now, whenever there is a huge amount of sunlight and there is an absorption of sunlight, it leads to increase in temperature. So will be a warmer air near the ground. And when this air becomes warm, it rises up in the air, known as the process of convection. Now in tropics, strong convection occurs due to intense sunlight, which distributes heat throughout the atmosphere. So as a result, in tropics, you will see as long as there will be large amount of sunlight, it will evaporate huge amount of water, and when this warmer water rises above the air, it leads to formation of clouds and eventually the rain. So this is the normal phenomena in the tropics, whereas in Arctic, this phenomena of convection is seen. As the heat from greenhouse gases, it remains trapped near the surface instead of being distributed upwards, and this results into concentration of warming at the ground level, which does not happen in the tropics. So this is in contrast. In Arctic, we have seen rise in temperatures because of these two facts, that is lack of presence of ice, which results into low albedo effect, and the lack of convection that happens in the Arctic areas or in the polar areas. Now, let us try to understand what is actually the Arctic's role in the global climate refrigeration. As I told you earlier also, the Arctic region, it acts as a refrigerator for the earth, and it regulates the earth's temperature because this region is very cold. Also, the Arctic warming, if it continues at this rate, it will eventually lead to rising of sea levels, as the ice which is present in the Arctic region will eventually melt, which will increase the water levels in the global water bodies, and hence the global sea level is expected to rise. Also, disruptions in the weather pattern may happen, as we have understood. It leads to phenomena like polar vortex in the lower latitudes of America as the warming of ice continues, and further extreme climate events may happen globally. So this is why we need to control the rise in temperature in polar areas so that these kind of extreme effects cannot happen in the earth climate. Now let us try to solve another practice question with the following statement regarding the Arctic warming. Which of these statements is or are correct? The presence of low pressure system over Iceland allowed warmer air from the lower latitudes to enter Arctic, leading to high temperatures. Yes, this is correct, as I have already told you. Second statement, the Arctic has warmed at the same rate as the global average since the late 70s. This is incorrect. As I told you, it warmed 4 times more than the global average and not at the same rate. The third statement, the albedo effect contributes to Arctic warming by increasing the reflection of sunlight from the ocean surface. Now, albedo impact, it does not contribute to Arctic warming, rather it prevents Arctic warming, and this is because of lack of albedo effect due to melting of ice. We have seen rise in temperatures in the Arctic. So third statement also incorrect, and we had to identify correct statement. Again, option A is the right answer here. Sir, this summer seems like a nightmare with heat wave and strokes across the world. Yes, actually every summer now happens to be the warmer summer as compared to previous year, and hence we are coming into very difficult times now. You can understand, in the month of February it was usually much colder in Delhi. Now it is not so much colder. Now moving to another article. Am I audible? Yes. Now moving to another article. This article appeared in the explained section of the Indian Express newspaper, and it highlights that Trump wants to own the piece of Gaza land. Now this happens actually when you make a builder the president of United States, that he'll look every piece of a land as an opportunity to develop his or her properties on it. So you'll not be surprised if Trump actually creates a Trump Tower with the Mediterranean facing in the strip of Gaza. Understood? So let us try to understand the context of this article in a serious manner. Now, US President Donald Trump, he has actually made a radical shift in his policy towards Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Before he came into power, he was very cooperative. He said that please get along well, both of these two warring parties, and instead he also favored the ceasefire of the war that was going on. But now he has shifted his policy, and he is now saying that United States should actually take over and develop the Gaza Strip. Now, Gaza Strip, if you want to look at the map, is a narrow piece of land located here. Now it borders Egypt here, and in the west, in the east, it borders Israel, whereas it does not share borders with Jordan, which is located here. Neither does it share borders with Libya, nor does it share its border with Syria. Now, Gaza Strip overlooks the beautiful Mediterranean Sea, and that was, I was joking that if Trump wants to create a Trump Tower here with the Mediterranean Sea facing. Now, these kind of jokes are intended to help you remember these kind of information that can be asked in the exam, that the Gaza Strip overlooks the Mediterranean Sea and not Red Sea, which is present here. Understood? Now let us try to understand today's article. Now, the proposals of US President, he suggested that the Palestinians, they should vacate the strip of Gaza and rather they should be shifted to countries like Jordan, Egypt and other Arab states, and these Arab states should actually accept the Gaza refugees. And while you empty the Gaza, US wants to take over this piece of land and be responsible for clearing unexploded bombs and weapons. As we understood, Israel bombed thoroughly this piece of land, so there might be a presence of unexploded bombs also in this area, and this, if the population were to reside in this area, it will put them into danger that these bombs can go off at any time. So US first of all wants to clear this area with the unexploded bombs, and while doing so, it wants to develop Gaza economically by making it as a Riviera of Middle East. So please remember these terms. This might appear in the exam. What term or what area was referred to as the Riviera of Middle East? Understood? Now also, he wants to create thousands of jobs and make it a model of prosperity. So this happens when you make a builder the president of United States. He'll look primarily any piece of land as an opportunity to develop it for commercial gains. And return of maximum pressure policy is again has been implemented by president on the Iran, as he has imposed many economic sanctions to prevent the Iranian regime to prosper economically, and he has also redesignated the Yemeni Houthis as the terrorist organization. So these are the key proposals that the US president has suggested on the politics of Middle East. Now, this kind of a move by US president naturally has widespread global opposition. First of all, Saudi Arabia, which is the most powerful country as far as Arab states are concerned, and it is also known as the keeper of the Sunni Muslims. Now, the Saudi Arabia, it rejected the proposal thoroughly and it reaffirmed its long standing that it wanted the Palestinian state to become an independent state, whereas European and global leaders like Australia, Iceland, Germany, China, they rejected this Trump's policy and they iterated their support for two-state solution. What is the two-state solution? That there must be two independent states in the region called as Israel and Palestine. And this is the same position which is subscribed to by India also, that India wants the resolution in this conflict so that the two states, they happen to coexist simultaneously and peacefully. Also, Turkey, which is an important player in the region, it says that the forced deposition or deportation of Palestinians is unacceptable to Turkey, whereas Palestinian Authority, they said that this was a violation of international law and it called for help from the UN to enlist that the Palestinian rights are protected from any such move by Israel and United States. Now, the two countries that are in question are Egypt and Jordan, because President Trump has highlighted that he will look to relocate the Palestinian refugees primarily into these two countries. But both these countries have demonstrated a strong resistance to this move. First of all is Jordan, as it already hosts a population of more than 2 million Palestinian refugees, which constitute about 1 in 5 population of the Jordanian public. And the rise of Palestinian nationalist groups, particularly Muslim Brotherhood linked Islamic Action Force, it has long threatened the position of Jordanian monarchy. As in recent election, we saw this particular party which demonstrate or that supports the ideology of Hamas, it has gained politically in the state of Jordan. Whereas coming back to the Egypt, it also has resisted such kind of a proposal, as earlier it cracked down on a Muslim Brotherhood, which was a movement supported by the terrorist organizations, and the Egypt state, it felt like if it were to accept large number of Palestinian refugees into Egypt, it could strengthen the Islamic movement such as the Muslim Brotherhood, and it could also pose political and territorial threat to the nationality of Egypt. So this is why these two countries have resisted or created hurdles for such a move. Now, this is the practice question that might appear on the borders of Gaza. Which of the following countries share the land borders with Gaza Strip? Let us try to look at the map. As I told you, Gaza Strip is this piece of land and it shares borders with Israel as well as Egypt, whereas it does not share borders with Jordan, Syria or Lebanon. So coming back to the question, which of the following countries share land borders with Gaza Strip? Egypt, as I told you, Israel is told you, Lebanon and Jordan aren't correct. We have to identify correct option. First and third are correct. Therefore, option B here is the right answer. Yes, Baga Spinks, US wants Greenland, Panama Island, Canada, Mexico now, Akhand US goal. Yes, very funny. Now let us move to the last article of the day. This article appeared in 2 pages of the newspaper. It yesterday appeared also, and it today appeared in the explain section, that is today on page 13. So we'll be understanding the broad context of this article that highlights India's climate policies looking to be changed right now. Why is that happening? First of all, this article said that in last year or so, particularly from the document of economic survey, India has signaled a subtle shift in its climate policy. Now the country actually has questioned the excessive preoccupation of global climate regime on reducing the global temperature, especially when developed countries are actually emitting more greenhouse gases than before. Now, instead, India wants adaptation to take precedence over reducing emissions, because the primary goal of India right now is to become a developed country, and for it to become a developed country, it needs economic growth, which can only be done through some kind of an emission of greenhouse gases. Now, adaptation would make India much more resilient to the impact of climate change, and that is why economic growth is necessary, so that the India can have funds, technology necessary to make it more adaptable to climate change. And this is the India's government position now. Now, India is expected to miss out on the February 10 deadline, which requires every country to submit their updated 2035 nationally determined contribution. So, this is also an indication that India's climate shift policy, which was very proactive earlier, it is looking to be changed right now. Now, let us understand first of all what the Paris Agreement was all about and why is now India changing its policy or the climate policy. Now, Paris Climate was a legally binding international treaty that aimed every participant of that treaty to reduce greenhouse gas emission and to adapt to the effects of climate change. Now, the goals set by this treaty is that the global increase in temperature should be limited to only 2 degrees centigrade, and every effort should be made in order to limit it further just to 1.5 degree over the global average. Also, to do that, the countries, they had to submit what kind of actions they will take, and this was called as nationally determined contributions. As countries, they submitted these NDCs highlighting what kind of actions they will do, such as reducing the emissions of greenhouse gases, adopting renewable sites of energy, creation of more forests so that to absorb the amount of greenhouse gases, and these are to be updated every 5 years, and that is why the newest update is expected to be given on the February 10. Now, India, in its latest nationally determined contribution, it said that it will reduce the emission intensity by 45% of India's GDP from 2005 level till 2030. Now, it will also create an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 gigatons of CO2 emission through additional forest and tree cover creation by 2030, and it will achieve 50% of generation of electric power through non-fossil fuel based energy sources like wind, solar, nuclear, etc. And this will be done by 2033. Now, according to this NDC, India is on well track to achieve these targets well before 2030. Understood? Now, this was given in 2020. Now, India is required to update this because the Paris Agreement requires countries to update their contributions or NDCs every 5 years, and India submitted its 2030 NDC in 2020. So 2035 NDC needs to be submitted by February 10 this year, and this is when India is expected to miss out on the deadline. Now, early submissions which are made by countries, it helps in compiling data, clarification and synthesizing these reports and assess whether these contributions will actually reduce the greenhouse gas emissions or not. Now, India is not ready yet with its 25 action plan, and however, there are no penalties on countries for late submission, so India actually will submit it late. Just like when it happens with the homework in school, right? When teacher asks, "Aaj homework kyun nahi kiya?" the most common reply among students is that my friend has not done it, why aren't you telling him to do that? Understood? Now, let us move to the reasons why actually there is a delay in India's submission of its updated NDC target. First of all is that globally, developing countries like India and China, they are disappointed over the provision of climate finances which was done over the latest COP9 studies. Now, developing nation, they actually want developed nations like US, etc. to provide about 3 trillion or $1 trillion annually for the needs of climate financing so that the developing countries can actually use this fund to undertake developments of its economy. So theoretically, if you have seen Hera Fairy, these developing countries were actually thinking that the developed countries will provide them with money so that they can undertake technological changes in order to make their economy less carbon emitting. So this was the original intention. But on the agreement, instead of providing $1 trillion, the developed nation, they only agreed to provide $300 billion per year. So this can be understood from this meme that they wanted so much money, and instead, like Kachra set of Hera Fairy, they are just providing them with 150 rupiah, or for example $300 billion per year. So in terms of requirement, the developing countries were demanding higher amount of money, whereas the developed countries are very stingy about their attitude, and they are only providing about $3 billion rupee annually. Now, this was strongly criticized by countries like India, as the amount of support which will be provided is abysmally poor and it will not help the efforts of the developing countries. An economic survey which was passed recently, it also hinted that India requires a possible readjustment of its climate targets because primarily India is not getting the funding as it requires. So this is the key development that has shifted India's policy in this regard. Also, India's recalibration of its policy comes at a time when the international attention on the global climate change has actually reduced, because currently the world is witnessing many armed conflicts, technology wars between US and China, armed conflicts between Russia, Ukraine, between Gaza and Israel, and this has actually shifted the focus away from climate change into dealing with these conflicts right now. And in this regard, also US President Trump, since he achieved the office of US President, he withdraw US from the Paris Agreement, and as a result, it is expected that US, instead of cutting down on its greenhouse gas emission, it will start emitting greenhouse gases even more. And also, after coming into office, he agreed to produce much and more fossil fuels, which will again not contribute to the targets of Paris Agreement. And this is why India feels, when every country is looking out for their own, why should India stay behind it? Instead, India's policy priorities right now is to become a developed country, and for that it needs economic growth, which is possible right now, and it can only be doing so by following the traditional method of economic growth. Now, there are another reason that the economic survey of 2024-25, it said that the primary goal of India is to become a developed country by 2047, and once it becomes a developed country, it will have the resources, it will have the technology, so that it can then focus on achieving the net zero goal by 2070. So the primary goal for India right now is to become a developed country, and doing so it will allow India to have the resource and then technology so to rapidly decarbonize its economy. Also, this rapid economic growth, for example, of China, has enabled China to build significant capabilities that enables it to right now decarbonize further. For example, China has the largest deployment of renewable energy. It has a solid manufacturing base for clean energy technology and resources, and as it is the world's largest producer of electric vehicles. So this highlights, like China, when it undertook huge economic growth earlier, it allows it to have resources, technology to decarbonize, and similar path can be undertaken by India also, and that is the reason why India is want to achieve the developed country status first and then focus on the decarbonizing efforts. Now, having done so, let us try to solve or understand how to attempt this kind of a question. India has recently emphasized adaptation and economic growth over the aggressive emission reduction in its climate policy. Analyze the factors driving this shift and discuss the potential impact on India's climate commitment and global climate negotiation. So, we'll introduce our answer by mentioning that India submitted its NDC, and the targets, it is said to be well achieved before the year of 2030. You will also eliminate or enumerate some kind of an NDC targets, that it wants to have 50% of non-fossil fuels, wants to have 50% of non-fossil fuel generation, 2 to 3 gigatons of CO2 worth of forest cover, and also net zero by 2070. Understood. So this is how you will start your answer, by giving the facts related to NDC and highlighting that India is on track to achieve this time. Now, then you will start your body by highlighting why is actually India changing its climate policy. First of all, you will enumerate 3 reasons that I told you. First is that the lack of financing. Lack of financing is the first reason. Second is the global focus is not on climate change but on conflicts, and also that US has withdrawn. And third is the need to become developed nation first, that will provide it with resources and technology to decarbonize rapidly. So this is how you will highlight the 3 reasons why India is driving this shift in policy. Then you will discuss the implications. And here you have to write one important thing, that India still understands that the climate change is a big threat. Hence, it does not want to undertake a huge effort in the emissions of the global greenhouse gases. Rather, it wants to develop first. However, it is doing so by aggressively deploying renewable energy. It is undertaking more efforts in understanding or setting up of nuclear plant, especially small modular reactor. And also, it is looking to fulfill its NDC target as it has committed to it. So, only the shift in policy is not that India will stop looking at the problem of climate change. Rather, it is prioritizing first its economic growth rather than emphasizing solely on reducing its emission. Whereas India's focus is on adaptation. That is, it wants to make its economy much more resilient to the changes of economic change. So this will how you will change that. It will not rationally or radically change India's policy, rather it is just a positional change. Understood? Now you will conclude your answer with the fact that climate change is the biggest threat to mankind, and every country including India and the developed nations should undertake less amount of greenhouse gas emission, and for that the funding in adequate amount should be provided to developing nations. Understood? So this is how you will conclude your answer. Now, if you have any problem in writing this answer and if you want to get your answers evaluated, this is the Telegram group. As many students now, they've started answer writing, and I'm pleasantly surprised by this initiative, and I'll encourage more of you to start writing your answers, as answer writing is the only way if you want to get your name in the final list. Understood? Now, let us conclude our today's session with this practice question that I've curated. This is actually a previous year question that appeared in UPSC's prelims in the year 2016. Now, every one of you who is watching this video, correct or comment with your correct answer in the YouTube comment itself, right? It allows the discussion in the comments also, and many people who might be watching this video will be able to tell you whether your answer is right or wrong. Also, I'll want to reiterate it again. Please like this video if you like our discussion, and also please help our content reach more people by sharing it here with your friends and relatives. Understood? So this is all for today's session. I'll see you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Until then, keep reading, keep analyzing, and more importantly, keep writing the answer that I tell you. So I'll take your leave. Have a very